today we are talking about boosting academic success and really giving effective strategies for supporting children's emotional support, especially when they're in an educational environment. Kids in Louisville went back to school this week, kind of. They went one day this week, and then they were out. They've been out because of some bus issues. But in thinking about the school year starting and in working with the clients that I work with, I was really thinking, what are some things that come up all the time about children in school that I think what if we were just all on the same page about these things right now, rather than letting it all kind of dribble out throughout the year and only if you interact with certain kids or whatever. What if we just started with, here are the things that you probably need to be prepared for. If you are a parent, or if you are a teacher, or if you are just a trusted adult in the life of a child, what are some of the things that you need to just know and be prepared for as you support your child going through school? Because if you can support your child in that environment, then they can learn to thrive in that environment rather than trying to get away from that environment, trying to do anything to leave that environment. And so today I wanted to talk about real strategies, not just theories about different things that might help if you do it in the textbook way, but let's talk about things that work and why it is that they work. Because if you know why they work, then you can use it in any environment. If you are relying just on one strategy, then it can get lost if you try to translate that strategy in a new environment. But if you understand why a strategy works, then you can use that strategy anywhere, but maybe in different ways. For instance, if you think that the trick to helping calm yourself down is taking deep breaths, there may be a situation that comes up, and I can't think of one right now, but there may be a situation that comes up where you are unable to take deep breaths. But if you realize the reason that deep breaths work isn't some magic in a deep breath, but it's that when you are taking deep breaths, when you are pacing your breath, that's really what it is. It's not just a deep breath, it's a paced breath. It's a breath that you've given thought to, that breath going in and out. When you are able to realize that it's not the magic of some deep breath, but it is because taking deep breaths helps regulate the brainstem. And the brainstem is in fight or flight mode, or at least headed that way, or at least agitated in some way. And so the reason your breath gets is because your brainstem is firing incorrectly. Then if you realize there are a lot of ways to calm down your brainstem. For instance, if you take your own pulse to show yourself that you are calm, that you're safe is really what it is. You can take your own pulse, and that will also calm down your brainstem. So now you know this whole thing, it's not just about the deep breaths, it's about calming down your brainstem. So you might not be able to think of a ton of different ways to take creative deep breaths, but you can think of a lot of creative ways to help yourself and the children in your life regulate their brainstem, to bring control back and show themselves that they really are calm and safe. Taking the pulse, you can take deep breaths. There's all sorts of things. Even just putting your feet on the ground with no socks or shoes on, just putting your feet on the ground and focusing in on that feeling helps regulate the brainstem. So it's the magic. But that's what I'm saying is, in that long way where I went around my elbow to get to my wrist, what I'm saying is that if I just tell you, oh yeah, use fidgets in school, then what happens when the kid gets bored with a fidget? How many times has that happened, right? You get your kid a fidget spinner and you bought it with their favorite Pokemon on it or whatever, and they use it for like a week, and then it's kind of old news, and you tell them, hey, make sure you take your fidget, and they're like, I don't like that fidget anymore. And so then what do? You either go out and get another fidget spinner, or you just say that strategy doesn't work. But I'm going to tell you today how and why fidgets work, not just different fidgets that you can use, because when you understand how or why a fidget works, then you can come up with thousands and beyond different ways to create a fidget. So we'll make sure to cover why fidgets work. We're going to talk about strategies for teachers and for parents. So let's jump right into it. The first thing that I would want to make sure to talk to you about is the brand new MrStuTV.com. That's MisterStuTV.com. There you can find all sorts of mental health resources that are for both parents and teachers. I'm going there right now. There is a page on our site that allows you to click on different things and you can download various resources. There are two resources that I'm going to be talking about different things today, that these two resources are great to use to help support children both in and throughout their journey at school. The first is a resource called Checking In with Your Child After School. That one is for parents. So if you are sick and tired of the conversation where your kid walks in and you say, hey, how was your day? And they say, good. What'd you learn? Nothing. Oh, nothing? Well, I learned some stuff in math. Okay. And then they go to their room, they shut their door, and you never hear from them until it's dinner time because they need food, right? Well, this resource, Checking In with Your Child After School, will help you to facilitate that conversation and really have a meaningful discussion rather than just these short answers. It's not something you'll have to use forever. It's a guide to help start the facilitation of the conversation, and then over time, it will just kind of turn into free form and you won't need the outline every single time. So get that resource. The other is one that's called Checking In with Your Student at School. That is a resource mainly for teachers. And it is one I have trained teachers to be able to use it to check in every single day with their students. Some teachers have a stack of these and they allow students to just come up and grab them if they feel like they need to, or if a kid gets to school early and they're just kind of sitting around. There's teachers who use it just as like a warm-up time or just as something to help kids settle during breakfast or whatever it might be. So grab those two resources, Checking In with Your Child After School and Checking In with Your Student at School. That is at MisterStuTV.com. That's MisterStuTV.com. Click on the link that says resources. And if you are a teacher looking for some boosting to your SEL curriculum, your current social emotional learning curriculum, Mister Stu TV offers some curriculum as well, and we will give you our very first edition of it, our anxiety edition, for free if you go to the website MisterStuTV.com and just click on curriculum, and you can see how to do all that there. So those are some resources that can be very helpful for you, just some tangible things rather than just theory or I hope that this works. These are things that really will work. They really will help you, and they are free. So head over there to MrStuTV.com, click on resources, click on curriculum, and get those things for yourself today. Let's talk now just about communication between parents and teachers and why that is so important, and maybe some tips on how to have communication between parents and teachers. There are two problems most of the time with the communication between parents and teachers. And those two problems are that either the teacher is not communicating enough with the parent and the parent is not communicating enough with the teacher, or the teacher is communicating too much with the parent, or the parent is communicating too much with the teacher. These are the broad ends of the spectrum. And what teachers and parents need to settle on is something in the middle. I think in today's world, it is expected that people just answer text messages immediately. Parents, please understand it is impossible for teachers to keep your child and all of the other children in their care safe and respond to your text messages throughout the day. It's just not possible. And I'll be honest, many of the behavioral reasons or the reasons I see children have disruptive behaviors in school is because an adult that was supposed to be watching them was distracted. Now, you won't see that in the report that comes out. No one will write down, I was distracted. What they'll say is, while I was working on other things or something like that. And I'm not saying that anyone is evil or criminal or anything like that, but what I'm saying is, teachers and parents, you've got to find a balance. There can't be no communication, and there can't be so much communication that it's actually distracting teacher from what you are needing to actually do within your classroom. So here's what I suggest. I suggest that for different students, you do different things. And that needs to be at the comfort of the parent and the child, not at just random discretion, or not at because little Adrian did this thing, I'm going to make sure that his mom knows it immediately because that's my threat to him. I'm going to text your mom. I'm going to call your mom. And there are so many reasons why that doesn't work. But let me get back to the first thing first, and then we'll go into why that doesn't work. The first thing is, it's not bad or wrong to communicate with parents when children have disruptive behaviors. However, if you are going to communicate with parents when their child has disruptive behaviors, you need to also make sure that you are communicating with them as often, if not more often, about their child's successes in school, or else the parent will begin to think that their child is a failure, whether consciously or subconsciously. That's the message. If the only messages they get are negative, that is not good. Even if it's like, oh, no news is good news, it doesn't work that way in people's brains. You have to balance it. If you're going to reach out about the difficult behaviors, make sure you're also reaching out when the child is showing amazing behaviors, or even when they're just doing something good. Make sure that you are reaching out about that as well. And also, same to the child. So if your threat is, which it shouldn't be, and I'm about to tell you why, but if your threat is, I'm going to call your mom, I'm going to text your mom, then when the child is doing something good, you also need to say, I'm going to call your mom about this. I'm going to text your mom or dad or whoever your guardian is. I'm going to message them or call them and let them know you did this thing as well. Because otherwise, the child will begin to think that all you notice in them is the bad. So they must only be bad, not good. But let's talk real quick about why calling or texting a parent in the moment does not work. I know it seems like it works. And I know that it looks in the moment, it's like, oh my gosh, the behavior stopped. This is great. But here is the message you are sending to the child when you say that for everything. If a child won't stop doing something or start doing something, or they're doing something that you don't want them to do, and your go-to is to call or message their parent, here is why that doesn't work. It doesn't work because then the kid sees you have no idea what you're doing. You are being paid. You are a professional being paid to work with children. Now, I do understand that situations come up where you don't know what to do. You genuinely don't know what to do, and you think the only person who can help you is their parent. Great. Keep that in your back pocket. Deal with the situation to keep it safe within the confines of the structure and systems that are put on within your school. Give necessary consequences, both positive and negative. Do all of those things, and then set a meeting to talk to the parent about these ways to support this child. not call the parent while they're in the middle of their workday and you are trying to watch other children. It doesn't work that way. And the child sees, or at least the signal to them is, this person does not know what they're doing. The second message that it sends to the child is that the child needs someone outside of themselves, probably mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, guardian, to control me anytime I'm causing a disruption. I can't do that on my own, because if I could do that on my own, they would teach me how, because I'm at school, so I'm here to learn. So if I could learn how to regulate myself, they would teach me. I would be learning that skill. But they're not teaching me. They're just calling and trying to control me and getting someone to control me. So it must be that someone needs to control me anytime I'm causing a disruption, anytime I'm having a disruptive behavior. And the reason that more disruptive behaviors are happening now in schools is because we are working more to control children rather than teach them how to control themselves. We have things like SRTs, and I'm going to go into that. SRTs are a great resource to help support children, but they should not be used as a consequence. But we have all of these systems in place that are there to control children, not to teach children how to control themselves. And so in those situations, when you want to reach out to the parent, think, what is my question? What really is it that's going on here that I need the parent's help with? Because if every time to help the child calm down, you call their parent, then guess what? Every time that child needs to calm down, you're going to need to call their parent, because that's all you've taught them. But if you're with them and you help them regulate it and you help them understand, yes, this is an uncomfortable feeling, but it's going to be okay, and we're moving on, because your emotion is about to move on too. I know you're angry. That's okay. Keep working, because you're angry. We can't stop just because you're angry. Your anger will pass. It will pass, and when it does, I'm very excited. But we have to allow children to feel that emotion, feel that discomfort, and that's how they'll really learn to regulate themselves rather than just allow themselves to be controlled. Let's talk about SRTs, or some schools call them safety, some schools call them security guards, whatever it might be. But those people who are there to come, and I guess the belief is they are there to come and remove children from classrooms when those children are being disruptive. That is at least the way that it has been described to me. We have got to start looking at these SRTs as offering a safe break to a child, not as a negative consequence or punishment because of something you did to me. Let me say that again, and I might not use the exact same words, but here's what it is. We have got to move from an SRT being something that is a punishment for something that you did. I'm gonna call them. It's that punishment mentality. We have to move from that into a mindset that an SRT or a security break or whatever is a break for a child who is stressed and cannot right now make appropriate decisions in this environment. That is why you remove a child from a classroom. Not because you were angry with them. That's not a reason to remove a child. Not because you think something might happen. That's not a reason to remove a child. Not because they are sitting with their head down and refusing to get up. That's not unsafe. That is a completely appropriate way for a child to regulate themselves. And so if you are calling in someone to remove a child because you are angry with that child, you have missed the entire point of what this SRT is for. An SRT is a safe, secure break for a child who cannot appropriately regulate themselves in the current environment. So we allow them to be removed, not forcibly remove them, but allow them to be removed from the environment so that they can get regulated enough to then return as quickly as possible. Not wait until the end of class, not wait until the end of the day, not wait 2 hours until lunch, not any of those things, but return to class as soon as possible. And guess what? Then they might need to get taken out again, and then they return to class as soon as possible. And then guess what? They might need to get taken out again, and then guess what? They return to class as soon as possible, because actually what you are doing is you are offering them exposure therapy. I'm going to see how long you can be in class, and then I'm going to give you a break to re-regulate. Then I'm going to see how long you can be in class, and then I'm going to give you a break to re-regulate. And over time, that exposure time, that time in class will grow, the break time will get shorter, and eventually will diminish all the way. But when it's used as a punishment, it only grows and grows and grows, because the child believes the only way they can function in this class or in this environment is to not be in this environment. That's what happens when it's a punishment. But when it's used as a support strategy for a child, then it allows the child to take a safe and secure break and then return to class as soon as they possibly can. And then they will get stressed out again. They will need that support again. And so they're allowed to take another break and then return to class as soon as possible. And over the days and weeks and months, and maybe for some students even years, you will see that their time away is diminishing, because they'll see that in the class is actually where the fun is. It just took some time to get used to that kind of fun. Learning can be fun too. And that brings me to my final tip and trick, and that is about fidgets. This is something I've been so excited to talk about, and it is based on some research that I am doing for some courses that are coming out at Mister Stu TV. I am offering a course about autism spectrum disorder, and it is about to come out live. When that happens, anyone who is on our mailing list will get a code that will give them $15 off of that course. So be sure to sign up on our email list. You can sign up by going to MrStuTV.com. There will be something that pops up and asks you to sign up for our mailing list. If you will sign up there, you will get $15 off of that course. And it is so much fun for me to talk about autism spectrum disorder and really what is happening in the brain of a child with autism or a person with autism. What is the actual cause of this disorder, not what are all the symptoms. Rather than just talking about the symptoms, let's talk about where those symptoms are coming from and why those symptoms are happening. Based on that course, I've also designed some on other childhood disorders. Well, in all of that research, I did some research about ADHD and was learning about ADHD and that disorder, and then started asking myself, well, why do fidgets work? If I understand what ADHD is, then now let's talk about fidgets and how that plays into the brain. So let's talk about fidgets and how almost anything can be a fidget. The way that fidgets work is there is a chemical in the brain called dopamine. And dopamine is the brain's reward chemical. Anytime you do something that the brain likes or enjoys or sees as satisfying, you get a burst of dopamine. And it is also stimulant medication, mental health medication, things like Adderall. Those things help produce more dopamine in the brain. They stimulate more dopamine in the brain, and so ADHD, the level is rebalanced. That's basically what's going on. Well, with fidgets, what is happening is our brains are constantly searching for sources of dopamine. Our brains are constantly looking for ways to be rewarded. So what our brains are doing is it's like, okay, can I get any dopamine from what I'm looking at? Can I get any dopamine from what I'm listening to? Can I get any dopamine from what I'm smelling? Can I get any dopamine from what I'm touching? And it is constantly searching for that dopamine. A fidget allows one of those portions of dopamine to kind of not need to be searching, so it allows the others to focus in. Let me give an example. If a child really likes a fidget spinner, that's kind of the one that started the craze about fidgets. If a child is using a fidget spinner, then they are getting dopamine from their touch receptors. That's it in general. They're getting dopamine from their touch receptors. And so their touch receptors don't need to look anymore. So now they can just stare, and they can use more of that dopamine search on the site rather than on their hands. So they're not just doing this, searching for more dopamine. There we go. So fidgets work by plugging some of those dopamine receptors in general, and it allows the person to focus in with the receptors they need to focus on. It could be that it is helpful for you to chew gum while you work. And really, gum is what I call a mouth fidget. So you put the gum in and you're chewing. It is such a shame that so many times children are not allowed to chew gum in school, because gum is the original fidget. And the reason that there was so much gum stuck under the desks is because gum really helps kids to focus, because they can chew and you can move it around in your mouth, and they have to learn regulation, like things, they can't pop the gum, they can't stick the gum underneath the table. What if it was not just, oh, you can't have gum, to, hey, if we find gum, this, no more gum until the next day, and then over time that time can get longer. But anyway, I digress. But gum is a mouth fidget, because what is it doing? It's plugging some touch receptors, it's plugging some taste receptors, it's plugging some scent receptors. And so gum, because it's plugging taste and movement and smell, kids are able to listen and look at what they need to. So gum would be great for kids. Another one, if kids are trying to read, the reason that music can be helpful is so that their ears are not listening to all the sounds just from being in a room with other kids. Kids just make noise. Adults make noise. If there's a bunch of them in a room, you will hear noise even if it's silent. So a lot of times it actually helps kids to listen to music when they're reading in a classroom. But if they're alone reading, it does not help them. Why? Because in the classroom, it allows them to listen in and focus in on something so that they're not listening to all the other noise. When they are at home or on their own or in a quiet environment by themselves that's safe, then the music is actually a distraction because it's the only noise in the room. But if there are other noises, some light music can help plug that dopamine receptor so that kids are then able to focus in on what they're looking at. If kids were able to listen to light music and chew gum, then get this, everything would be plugged. Their taste, their touch, their smell, and their hearing. And the only receptor open would be their sight receptors. Again, this is in general science. I understand, I'm not a neurochemist, but in general, this is what's happening. And they would just be looking, and that could really help children read better. I'm just saying, let's talk about it, people. If you are a policymaker, think about reenacting, or I don't know what the word would be, reintroducing gum into the school environments. Let them chew it. It will really help them look at and listen to a lot of things. That is why fidgets work. It plugs dopamine receptors. So you can, that's why coloring actually works. I know that it looks like the child isn't listening to you, But they don't need to be looking at you. Most of the time, they don't need to be looking at you to be listening. Imagine how many meetings you have been to, especially in the Zoom world, where you were not at all looking at the person who is talking, but you were able to get all of the information that you needed. Was it every single sentence, every single word? No. But really, we don't need that. People use a lot of filler words. So if you allow children to not be looking at you and maybe coloring, or maybe they're drawing, or maybe they're doodling, or maybe they are writing, maybe they're taking notes, or maybe there are some who do just want to sit and look at you and focus on you because you are interesting and dynamic and creative. If that was allowed, children could hear a lot more because their brains wouldn't be looking for dopamine in sight and in tactile things. So I urge you, if you are an educator, let kids color while you're talking. They really can listen to you. And as a matter of fact, they will listen better because their sight and their tactile receptors, those things searching for dopamine, won't have to search because they'll be focused on the coloring. Or other fidgets. So that's why a fidget spinner works. It's plug in a dopamine receptor. That's why music works when you're working out, because it plugs this dopamine receptor. Now again, what the problem can be is if then you rely on this hard and heavy music to be able to lift, well then you've outdone yourself. So you do have to find a balance there. But fidgets work because they plug the dopamine. So find things that are rewarding to the child. And if you'll let them just dabble in those things, and again, find things that are quiet. Things like just pieces of Velcro, the rough side and the soft side. If you put them together where this is the rough side and this is the soft side, or the other way, it doesn't matter. But this part, the parts that are touching, is the sticky side. So you have the smooth side on the outside over here and the rough side on the outside over here. You've created a fidget because the kid can feel the two different sides and they can flip it over in their hands and feel it. You can also put Velcro strips in folders. You can put them underneath of chairs. You can put them under desks, and they can be removed. So, and they're silent to let kids just play there on the Velcro strips. Just let them plug those dopamine receptors, and then they'll be able to focus in on you even more. We are over our time, and I have had a blast talking to you today about some strategies to help support kids. Make sure that you don't miss out on any of the mental health fun, resources, and training that is coming your way in the next days, weeks, and months. Follow Mister Stu TV everywhere on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and head over to MrStuTV.com. We also have some brand new Mister Stu TV merch with all of your favorite Mister Stu TV characters. So I will see you very soon. The next Facebook Live is in 2 weeks at 2 p.m. I'll see you there. Until then, spread the word, share the love, share the love. Bye-bye.